Yeah! It's Halloween! Lots of candy, costume parties, an excuse not to wear pants in public, and best of all, scary video games. Nope.
I love Halloween, but not for the reasons you might think. For me, Halloween is a chance to dress up in costume, show up at a friend's house, and play drinking games until I wake up next to a sexy nurse, or more realistically, a semi-attractive bathroom rug, and maybe a tasteful shower curtain. I'm not a heavy drinker, but for special occasions, I'll make an exception, especially when that special occasion involves forcing me to watch horror movies and writhe in terror behind couch cushions, Rocky. The horror genre and me don't mix. That's the way it's been for as long as I can remember, and no matter how many spoopy something is, it's always too spoopy for me. I was going to do a top 5 on the games that scared me the most, but it would have ended up looking something like this.
Number 1.
All of them.
I might not have the tolerance for scary games and movies, but that doesn't stop me from having a good time this time of year, and there are plenty of ways to enjoy the holiday without giving yourself nightmares like the braver folk do. Plenty of games that fit the occasion that'll leave you smiling instead of screaming. So here are 5 not-so-spooky games for a not-so-spooky Halloween.
Number 5.
Costume Quest is a neat little RPG from the weird minds at Double Fine, and it's all about the night of Halloween. Evil grubbins steal your sister because they think she's a giant talking candy corn, and it's up to you to rescue her. Though why you would ever want to rescue someone with the audacity to dress up as the worst Halloween candy known to man is beyond me. Costume Quest plays a lot like a Paper Mario game that's been simplified even further, but it still has a good chunk of fun customization to it. You can wear different costumes and watch your imagination turn a cardboard box into a super fighting robot or a knight in shining armor, and you can use battle stamps to add more effects to your costumes and battles. I know, right? A Paper Mario game that uses stamps correctly, who would have thought? Going door to door trick-or-treating, making new costumes out of craft supplies, getting candy, kicking ass, and taking names. Costume Quest is a Halloween game after my own heart, and a game that totally fits the spirit of the season. Besides, I'm way too old to get free handouts for dressing up and knocking on strangers' doors, so, you know, vicarious living and all that.
Number 4.
FBI Special Agent, Francis York Morgan. Please, just call me York. That's what everyone calls me.
There are few video games in existence that can hold a candle to the carefully crafted mess that is Deadly Premonition. A survival horror by any other name, Deadly Premonition is about murder, chess, awful driving, ghost zombies, and strange people set in the town of Greenvale, a countryside hamlet of small repute. It's gained somewhat of a cult following recently because of how bizarre of an experience it is, and because it takes inspiration from a lot of different places and does a lot of different things with it. One minute you're in an autopsy room examining cadavers, and the next you're in a time trial race to unlock a trading card, but then the game turns into Silent Hill, and then you're getting your fortune told by a hot cup of coffee. Talking about this game is an injustice to it because there is just so much to say. This game is bad. The shooting controls suck, the walking controls suck, the driving, well, quite frankly, the driving is the scariest thing about this game. There is no tension in the horror segments, the monsters aren't scary, and serious moments between characters is broken up by corny humor and silly dialogue. But you can never tell whether it's intentional or not. All of these broken pieces that loosely resemble parts to a scary video game come together to form a terrible accident that you can't stop playing. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't love it. For all its failings, Deadly Premonition makes one thing very clear. It is passionate, and I for one will revel in its discombobulated dance at least once this time of year. It is one of the very rare so bad it's good video games out there, and it deserves to be played on a night that celebrates the delightfully horrifying.
Nice shot. Amazing.
Number 3.
This is where I talk about Majora's Mask and explain why it's a great game that uses scary imagery to create intrigue. Then I'd tell you to go buy the remake on the 3DS because it's a good remake for a game that deserves it. But since Nintendo's copyright abuse would be rampant and forthcoming, And since I don't want to remove this top 5 video like I had to my first one, I won't.
Instead, I'll tell you about Plague Inc. Evolved. Most games having to do with a menace put you at odds with it. In Plague Inc., you are the danger. You are that which hounds the living. You are the sickness killing the world. You are the cacophony of... It's still in early access? Why? At any rate, in its current form, Plague Inc. is a simple game with a simple premise. Create the pathogen of your choosing, give it a name, and constantly evolve it in order to kill the world, while at the same time avoid becoming vaccinated by the medical powers that be. Even though it isn't in its final form yet, there's already a lot of content in the game, and even workshop compatibility for mods and the like. You aren't just limited to your basic incurable diseases either. You can make a zombie virus and create your own little Night of the Living Dead, or do what I did and give everyone butt rust. It's not specifically horror-oriented, but it gives you the tools to create the scary scenario yourself, and all it takes is a little imagination for it to come to life. This January, it will come from the waters. It will take your toilet paper. And it will infect you. You cannot escape it. You cannot stop it. Can you find the cure, or will you be forever haunted by muddy cheeks?
Number 2.
My disdain for the zombie genre is no secret, but it is one I'd like to advertise more often on the show. It's absolutely fascinating to see a mindless, repetitive, decayed creature have a subgenre just like it in almost every way. Let's face it, zombies aren't cool anymore. Everything has zombies now, and if it doesn't, it gets DLC for it. The genre is so dead that games even closely resembling a zombie survival have gone to great lengths to point out that there aren't any zombies in it. Even when Left 4 Dead came out and renewed the concept of zombies in video games and broadened the scope of what could be done with these creatures, the industry decided to take inspiration from the tanks, witches, and other neo-zombie types and did absolutely nothing with it. Instead opting to make their own versions of these enemy types that basically did the exact same thing. But let's go back and talk about Left 4 Dead, Left 4 Dead 2, and a series that did everything in its power to put a novel twist on these gruesome monsters. 4 unlikely people are forced to place their trust in one another as the zombie apocalypse comes falling on their heads, bringing with it a bunch of superpowered baddies hell-bent on stopping their escape. Run from point A to point B, kill everything and anything that tries to stop you, laugh at whoever gets caught by the jockey, and when he asks for help, remind him about that money he owes you. It's a great game to play with a group of friends, and just creepy enough to incite panicked screams as a tank tumbles into a fight with 4 unprepared players that were busy dealing with a witch. Even better, it's a game perfect to play on Halloween for people that still want the horror without the nightmares. Speaking of nightmares...
Number 1.
I tricked you into watching another video with a Miyazaki game at the top, haha. I have never seen a more Halloween spooky times town that had nothing to do with Halloween since Halloween Town High. I have never seen a more nightmare-inducing, horror-inspired video game that wasn't all that scary, actually. Bloodborne is a character action game, yeah. I called it a character action game. Because that's what it is. Fuck you. A character action game set in the town of Yharnam, a place plagued by werewolves, aliens, and Lovecraftian terrors. If you want a better explanation of what's going on in the game, then good luck. I could just end this video right now, because it's not hard to see what I'm talking about here. You can clearly see where I'm coming from, right? There's a giant werewolf, the moon is scary, it's really easy to die. Yeah, the game's got all the pieces of an 80s horror movie, but it isn't built like one. Bloodborne is many things, but scary, Well, unless we're talking about having to farm for blood vials, no. In true Souls fashion, the mysteries you'll find in Yharnam will eclipse any fear you might have had. I made a moon joke. You'll be too busy trying to understand why the statues have tentacle faces to notice the unspeakable standing before you. Heck, after a couple of hours, squid people will probably look normal to you. As far as fear goes, Bloodborne is like walking through a bad haunted house. Interesting, but not very scary. And for the faint of heart, that's the best kind of haunted house there could be.
The hunt makes hunters mad.
If you wanted to get right down to it, any badly done horror game or movie would be a perfect fit for a not-so-spooky Halloween. But with stuff like Deadly Premonition being the exception, why would you put yourself through that? Halloween is about being scared or making fun of things trying to scare you, not self-harm. If you're like me, then I hope this list gives you something to do this Halloween. And if you like scary stuff, then spook away. And for those of you that don't celebrate Halloween, dude, Fallout 4 comes out in like 10 days.